On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, financial trends. So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Shawn Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law. Welcome back, your financial coach, George Corbello. How you doing, George?
Doing well. I'm
You finished those leftovers yet?
full of food, and I've been exercising, and at least that's what I want to do. But yes, and dude, we're getting closer and closer to the house. The house is like the closing date is unrealistic, but I think at this point, yeah, we're a few weeks away.
Do you have a closing date?
Right now, I think it's at least from where we're recording, it's in December. So
Okay.
it's a few more weeks. I mean, but yeah, I remember the initial date itself was like November 21st, which was, a few days before Thanksgiving, which I was like, not realistic.
No,
Let's
no
keep
thanks.
it real. Yeah, no thanks. I don't want that. But yeah, much closer than what we had thought. I remember we anticipated February. And that got moved up. So usually it's moving out, but I gotta give the KB Homes a shout out in regards to doing well for that.
You'll be in your house before 2024, we think?
That is with the thought process. So very excited about that. But I haven't had a home in been in a home for 5 years itself. I mean, it's all rentals and stuff. So very excited, but at the same time, I got to get my tool belt. Got to get all ready again.
This week is always rough for me because it's the end of college football. It's the week after Thanksgiving where I basically checked out. I mean, I worked the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of Thanksgiving week, but I had family in town, and then to basically go from 4 or 5 days off to now I got to get back to the grindstone. When this episode comes out, it's the last day of November.
Yep.
Then we get into December. We got to finish the year strong. We got to do all that nonsense. So. This week is always kind of rough for me, but I always enjoy
turkey. Turkey doesn't help.
No, turkey tryptophan does not help. Before we get too much into our topic today, which, by the way, congratulations, episode 399.
I was about to say we're one away from the big 400. So big kudos to you, my friend, to be in longevity when it comes to podcast recording and providing great content. But wow, 399.
We got to figure out what are we going to do for 400.
I guess we'll have to put up the whiteboard and draw out the festivities and all
I know
that
what we
kind of
could
stuff,
do for episode 420.
That's gonna be a lot of two old men here.
Yeah. So episode 400 is next week. So we will figure out something cool for you for episode 400. We do want to say thank you again to our longtime sponsor, Sam Cohen. He's not been with us for 400 entire episodes, but he's been with us the longest of any sponsor, any supporter that we've had. So again, if you are an attorney or title company, if you know an attorney or title company, especially one that is brand new forming, that attorney that decided, forget it, I'm going out on my own, have them give Sam Cohen a buzz. That's all he does is write malpractice insurance for attorneys and title companies all over the country. Sam at attorneysfirst.com. Also, as this episode comes out, we're just about a week, maybe I think exactly 9 days away from the More Entrepreneur Summit 2023, December 8, 2023. It's virtual. You can get your tickets. You can attend from your home, your home office. If you're going to be in your underwear, keep your cameras off. But I will be there speaking about technology tips. So thank you for helping me get that done a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. And
we'll make sure Shawn wears pants.
I will definitely be wearing pants
for his presentation.
Good idea. I may stand up to prove it to y'all, but trust me, I will be wearing pants.
Best investment from a business standpoint. Best investment from a personal standpoint, I imagine it'll be a learning experience.
You mean the best investment is pants?
No, I'm talking about going on signing up for the actual.
Signing up for the summit is a good investment.
Well, having pants too would be a good investment.
Would be a good investment.
Aye.
Okay, so before this episode gets any further off the rails here,
come back.
So we were talking about financial trends, and we started coming up with a bunch of them. And so what we thought is going into December, going into 2024, what kind of financial trends do you foresee on the horizon into 2024 and beyond?
Well, I got to say, as a coach, what I'm seeing, and again, I'm a a expert at my opinion, so and my advice itself. But what I've been seeing, out there, people are, for me, getting married later. Was waiting or foregoing some of the big purchases, getting married, having kids. I mean, growing up, obviously, we're old lads, and when we were younger itself, you talking about starting families in your 20s, and we're starting to see the trends really for a lot of our folks growing up now, that they're just foregoing that and waiting for their 30s, waiting for their careers to kind of cement and lament before they start plunging into some of those adult responsibilities.
Yeah.
But again, there's consequence, either way. I mean, obviously having a family young or having a family later, there's different impacts when it comes to that.
Well, and that was something that I've always kind of thought to myself. My father's 25 years older than me. Mm-hmm. So now I'm 50. When my father was 50, I was 25. Mm-hmm. When I was 25, I was in law school already at 25. My oldest son is in middle school, is in 6th grade.
Right.
Me and my wife got married later, and we had kids later. Mm-hmm. We didn't wait very long from when we got married to when we started having kids, but both. We got married at a later age. We started having kids at a later age. And it just kind of blows my mind. I can't imagine, now that I'm 50, I can't imagine what it would be like to have a 25-year-old walking around my house, 25-year-old snot-nose walking around my house.
I've got almost a 21-year-old, so gotcha.
I can't even imagine what that would be like. And actually, I say I'm 50. I'll actually be 51 a few weeks after this episode comes out. Lord.
Getting old there, buddy.
The stuff that starts falling apart when you hit 50.
Let's just, okay.
We'll save that for...
Pants and falling apart. All right, here we go.
We'll save that for another episode. We will save that. But yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know that it was necessarily a conscious choice.
Yeah.
I think it was just... I couldn't find the right one until I was older.
And that's one reasoning. But I think a lot of folks, you got a lot of kids coming out of college. They have debt from college. It's hard to find the job that pays, does the things that are necessary. Things are expensive out there as well. I mean, if you think about even in Florida here in the Tampa Bay area, your rent today itself, you have to have a roommate if you're really going to have a rental, nice area, a great place to kind of start with your career. Those kind of things, it's just very expensive, and you don't have the funding to be able to start those things off. It's important to have, but again, I want to have the car, I want to have this, I want to have all these kind of things as well. It kind of prevents us from actually saying like, hey, maybe settling in or starting a family.
Yeah, it is definitely something to consider. I mean, finances, I think everybody's always been kind of concerned about finances when you talk about settling down and starting a family, but it's really important to talk about it now.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think about some of the financial decisions my wife and I made when our kids were young, and just keep thinking to myself now, were some of those absolutely necessary?
Right.
And I want to give the best. We all as parents want to give the best to our kids, but were some of those expenses absolutely necessary?
Well, sometimes we at the time of those discussions, I'd imagine they were like, yes, they're needs. We need this. We have to do these kind of things. That's we could all be Monday morning quarterbacks, my friend. It's like we could try to be different and go, yeah, I would have done things differently. But I think, once again, learn from our mistakes, help our kids, help our peers, our family members itself to kind of like, hey, we talked about sharing at Thanksgiving. This is another opportunity to kind of, and the holidays, share some of the wise advice that we learned. Hey, maybe that's not a good idea to do what we did, and maybe do things a little differently so you can have some positive net results.
Well, and along with that, I wonder how much is college planning and student loans? How much is that going to be a financial trend going into next year? And if it is, what? Is it less borrowing? Is it less, the major 4-year institutions and more the trade schools? Mm-hmm. Is it, what is that going to look like?
Well, I think you're seeing as well some of the trends around college, like not having a need for a degree. You're starting to see a lot more of, vocational schools, trade schools becoming more, more useful. Like you don't have to have the 4-year degree to get the job, to make the six figures itself. You got entrepreneurs, you have, plumbers, carpenters who do really, really well. And it's one of those kind of trends that I'm seeing too.
Yeah, some of the most successful business owners that I know. One's a roofer. He did my roof.
Yeah.
A friend of ours, another guy owns an insurance agency, although I think he did go to college. Like you said, plumbers, electricians. I've got another, Jason Avery's been on the show. He's a contractor. I don't recall if he finished college or not, but these are some of the most connected, most giving, best business owners that I know, and
money making,
and making
crap
good
loads
money,
of money, which is great.
And I think I have more formal education than they do because I went to law school, but they're crushing it. So you don't necessarily need the 4-year degree anymore.
And I think that you're seeing a trend in that as well. So hopefully that does kind of lower the borrowing needs. You hope that goes down student loans. But trends that I'm seeing even like now too is, more delinquencies. Again, COVID, relief is done. Repayment is back up and running for a lot of the student loans. Inflation is up. There's just a lot of things working against. And by the way, you got to pay for that college degree. And you're starting to see maybe some of the delinquencies on people not being able to pay those repayments as well. So that's another thing you're seeing.
It's interesting. What I've seen a lot of over the last couple of months are some of these older judgments. So under Florida law, a judgment is good for 20 years. So a judgment that was entered in, how long? 2010 was 13 years ago. Yep. But that judgment would not expire until 2030, which is still 7 years from now. All that time ago, what were you doing in 2010? If you're listening to this show when it comes out in 2023, you're just beyond halfway to the expiration of that debt. Is kind of mind-blowing. I got married in 2010, rather. I got married, so kind of blows my mind. But what I'm seeing now, the trend I'm seeing, is a lot of these older judgments going back and saying, hey, we still want to try to collect on this. What do you have, Mr. or Mrs. Borrower, that we can try to collect against to satisfy this judgment? I'm seeing a lot of that. And I wonder how much of that is some of these creditors saying, we're feeling the financial pinch. We need money. And so we're going to go after some of these borrowers that have had judgments that are 5, 10, 15 years old to see what more money we can squeeze out of them.
It makes total sense. And I think, again, what adjustments are people making? What adjustments are everyone making because of that? So, I got to say, what are some of the other trends that you're that we're seeing that we think might come out from a bankruptcy perspective or anything like that you're seeing?
Well, from a bankruptcy perspective, I think we're still dealing with COVID. Not COVID, crypto and COVID to an extent. I have some clients that are calling me saying COVID killed my business and I haven't been able to recover. But we're still dealing with COVID. We're still dealing with crypto. We're still dealing with student loans are also still a big issue in bankruptcy court. Like I said, some of these judgments, we've had people that have started to get garnished and they don't have the wage garnishment exemption to protect their wages. And so but some of that stuff, the thing that I'm wondering, the real trend that I'm wondering about is we're still kind of at the very infancy of AI, of artificial intelligence.
Okay.
I wonder what kind of an impact that's going to have on finance and the finance markets and financial trends. I wonder how that's going to impact.
AI, people just are worried about the job market, certain jobs itself being eliminated because of the growth of AI. I still think it's still early on seeing what that means, but we've had technology, that changed the way we handle certain products, how we do. Again, taxis with Uber, there's adjustments that need to have from industry to industry. I don't think we do, anything medically. We still use some of the technology we have 50. So technology that's being introduced, we always have to grow and change.
But here's an interesting thing that I noticed is that if you go to Walmart, Target, you go to these kinds of stores, you see McDonald's, you see more unmanned cash registers than you see manned cash registers.
Totally agree.
That's not necessarily it's not necessarily AI, but you're still seeing more unmanned, more self-checkout than you are cashier assisted checkout. I wonder what kind of impact that's having on for example, the job market. I know that, minimum wage is going up.
Yep. So it's a few things that you're hitting on there. Like I love here. So self-checkout, obviously you have more where we're doing the work. Consumers are doing the work itself. So that there's jobs that are being lost there. Right. But what I've noticed when it comes to self-checkout is theft is up. So you're starting to realize that companies itself, and everybody, I'm not saying stealing is justified. People are going to do things, that are against the law.
It's their signing bonus for being the self-checkout cashier. If I'm gonna be
I'm
my
getting
own
that gum.
If I'm gonna be my own cashier, I'm giving myself a signing bonus. And
oh my goodness. Okay, so but that's another trend where we get a lot of theft because of the self-checkout. I'm not sure how popular. I mean, I went to New York recently as well, and they had a store that was only thing is you take things. I think it was the Amazon store or Google store, but you take items itself. The cameras in the store are already recording, and all you do is go to the door, check out with your card or your pass and stuff like that. It says $5. Like whatever you grab. Cameras are already calculating how much you want from a checkout perspective.
That's probably more of an AI.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's where the AI comes in.
I like the idea, but again, there's theft that you have to worry about. There's, again, employees. You only have an employee there to stock. There's no cashier. There's no someone who's helping you out with any of the checkout or anything like that. It's a guy who's just putting stuff back on the shelf. And it's so that's where I think we're headed. But that store was small. It wasn't like a huge Walmart where it's like, oh, I'll just take something and I'm good. I think it's one of those kind of things that it will change the way we shop. And we're already seeing it with like checkout online. You're seeing it online, but it's like, what if you had that convenience in store?
Right.
So it'd be interesting how that plays, but it'll have impact on the jobs. People are also blaming the economy itself. But like, everyone, minimum wage is up. So now the price of, a Big Mac, you go to McDonald's and what used to be a $5 meal now is $15.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, we can blame the minimum. Again, yes, you can blame, but you could also blame, I think McDonald's profits are pretty high in regards to that. You're telling me that, some of the billions, they can't, provide minimum, a higher minimum wage for their workers. So all of those kind of things you have to look at, but there are different ways to really manage this. But for me, those are the trends we're going to start seeing. It's kind of like we go from self-checkout, but because theft is high, we're going back to we need to get a human, a human
You're just
interaction
shifting
again.
them from a cashier to a security guard or something.
Exactly.
And I'm never. So I know that this is. I don't want to get too political on the show, but I tend to think, especially since I am a business owner, if I can make a bunch of money, I'm going to make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Now, I get it. I'm not the level of a McDonald's, a Walmart, I'm not at that level.
Not yet.
Not yet. I would assume that if I had a huge law firm that were generating millions and millions and millions of dollars, that I would do a lot more in terms of giving back than what I'm doing now. But at the end of the day, I don't know that I would ever apologize for if I built this law firm and I created this company and this company is generating for me the lifestyle that I want. I'm never going to apologize for that.
I wouldn't.
I built it. So I tend to, I know there are some people that say Walmart makes all this money, McDonald's makes all this money. They should lower their prices. They should give their employees more money. They should do this. They should do this. They should do this. And I agree. There may be some level of, if I have a Walmart employee, and the flip side of that argument is Walmart is not designed to be somebody's career.
Correct.
Walmart is designed to supplement income. Walmart is designed for high school kids.
They were designed, but we're in, again, more trends where we're saying harder jobs to find out there. And again, depending on education, we talked about college, we talked about those kind of things. These jobs have turned into, like retail stores and stuff like that. They're not meant to be careers, but there are people who are working for these companies for a long time. And if that's their source of income, again, with all the other prices going up, again, we talked about rent being high. You're not going to work at Walmart and be able to afford the rents that we have that are here in Tampa or in a lot of the big cities.
No. One of the other things that you kind of mentioned, which I think is another financial trend we're getting into. So I mentioned crypto a little bit.
Yep.
The big thing about crypto is that it's deregulated. So and actually, I know that the different states and the countries and whatnot are trying to regulate it more. It's decentralized, and so they're trying to regulate it more. But are we not already there because of digital? So like both my kids yesterday said to me that they were out of money in their school accounts.
Sure.
So I go online and I say, reload my school accounts, each kid $15, reload it. Here's my debit card.
Yep.
It directly pulls it from my bank. No cash changed hands, no physical money changed hands. Everything was debit card. Like you said, in the store, the video tracks what you bought.
Yeah.
You give them your debit card. I have clients paying me now. I figured out how to use PayPal. I finally caught up to 2015, and I figured out how to get people to pay me by PayPal.
Do you have Venmo?
Venmo.
Okay.
Are we? The whole thing about crypto is that it's decentralized. It's
Yes.
not regulated.
Yep.
But aren't we already there with? I mean, the last time
It's how you think about it. It's how you look at it. I agree with you there. I think, but what people are looking for is the security in regards to where the money is. If something happens to the Bitcoins and to that particular environment, we've seen it, the roller coaster ride that it has. At this point, people lose their money. And there's no financial or federal backing.
Right.
That's the one thing that at least you get from a federal bank is the security that you have. But I don't know. That's also a trend where it's like, how confident are we in the banks? We had 2 major banks close, this year. And again, that people were losing money, or they had to move their money from that perspective. Yes, they're protected by the FDIC, but again, people are not looking for, what is the law telling me? They're looking, where am I confident that I'm going to be able to store my money, put my money? Crypto seems to provide some of that, and there again, the opportunity for growth. But remember, that's currency. It's not like you're investing in crypto. I hate you don't invest in crypto. Technically, it's your money. It's just the way you have the money, where it's stored, and where it is at.
You invest in crypto in the same way that you invest in like penny stocks and that kind of stuff. I mean, I agree with you. It is a currency, and it's interesting from the legal perspective to look at it. Is it currency? Is it an asset?
Correct.
What exactly is it? But because it can grow. If you buy it at a certain amount and it goes up in value, you made money. If it drops, you lost money.
But here's the thing: it's the same like if you did with the euro,
right?
The peso, the same. I mean, it's the same concept. That's why again we got to be careful when we say, "Ooh, let's," the investments that we have when it comes to crypto as well. And I think that's what's been causing some issues with people too.
But then even beyond that, the number of places that don't take cash anymore. So
that's a huge trend.
My son went to the USF game, the University of South Florida college game last weekend. He went to the USF game, and I gave him a $20 bill, and he was like, "But I." And
Dad,
so
what do I do with this?
Luckily, the mom that took him, the friend's mom that took him, I ended up giving her the $20 bill, and then she just did debit card for whatever. But a lot of the major stadiums, a lot of the major theme parks,
sporting events, and they just don't want to deal with cash.
They don't take cash anymore.
It is, and that's a huge trend I've noticed as well in regards to it. So if you're old, if we're going to say old Ramsey kind of like cash is king, and I'm like, yes, cash is king itself, but merchants and people, the sales, these kind of events, they're not looking for, they want convenience, and what they're looking for itself is to kind of like, here's the digital swipe, here's what you need, I collect the money, and we're good to go. There's no possibility of losing the cash or something else that might happen when you have that kind of money.
The other interesting thing that I think we might do a future episode on, but the other interesting thing that I'm wondering in terms of future trends, how do I say it? The side hustles, the influencers,
the side hustle. We talked about like rentals. The rental market itself. I've all of those kind of things that we were making a lot of money. COVID, post-COVID, right after the pandemic. Kind of, again, 3 weeks here in Florida,
right.
but those kind of things that seem to be working. Even the nursing. Remember, nursing was a huge industry where people, they go out of state, make tons of money. That is kind of slowed down from a trends perspective. All of these things that we were banking for as side hustles or, starting our businesses itself, they're not as, they're still there, but it's not as out there as we saw,
Well,
starting 2020.
And even beyond that, the influencer stuff. So, my kids are coming home even today. My kids are coming home and saying, my kids are 9 and 12.
Yeah.
My friend has a YouTube channel.
Nice.
I mean, who was the kid? There was that kid years and years and years ago on Facebook that became, not Facebook, YouTube, that became a millionaire by doing all these videos with his parents and with his friends and with all this stuff. Kids and we talked about earlier on this show, do we need to go to college? Should we go to a trade school?
Yeah.
Do you not need to go to any school? You just catch a lucky break and provide content that takes off and goes viral. You could become a millionaire just from doing that.
Yeah, and that's again, you talk about YouTube itself, but a lot of the big debate today with OnlyFans. I mean, you have those kind of, again, all those kind of platforms. Again, whether you approve it or not, I'm just saying people are using these types of platforms to sell a particular product itself or sell themselves, meaning like, hey, here's my value, here's the things that I'm doing, here's whatever, and monetizing from that. And people are, you're right, if you get the right trend or the right people, the audience itself, you can make millions. I mean, I've seen some craziness with the numbers that are out there when it comes to some of these. Again, I don't want to call them influencers. I get they're business people when it comes to their trend.
I've seen stories. I remember one story sticks out of my mind of a teacher who got fired from the school system.
Yep.
And I forget what state, what city, I forget. But it was a teacher that got fired from the school system because the superintendent or school board or whoever found out that this teacher had an OnlyFans page.
Yep.
But the OnlyFans page...
How do you know, first of all,
right, number one, superintendent had to find out.
Continue.
But the OnlyFans page was making this teacher 2 times, 3 times, 4 times what she was making as a teacher.
Exactly.
So when they said, you're fired because you have this OnlyFans page, she went, okay.
Amazing. Amazing. And again, past the judgment part in regard, but we're talking about, our teachers should be the ones who are making 2, 3, 4 times the amount itself. How is it that, again, the side hustle is the way to make the money?
I've said this before. I mean, part of the reason that attorneys charge what they charge is because we had 4 years of college and 3 years of law school, and some of these issues are fairly complex that we have to think through, and arguments and all that stuff. So I do put what I think is a reasonable value on my time, but at the same time, my younger sister is a school teacher. Why does she make a fraction of what I do? She's training the next level of people that will take over
kids.
for me. Why should she be making that much less?
Again, debate for another episode, but I totally agree with you in regards to some of the trends, some of the things that we're seeing. I'll leave you the last trend too that we're hoping for. Again, I'm getting my house, right? So it's like, will the interest rates go down as part of the next few years? Pricing is the housing market finally cooling off. Are we starting to see inventory? The other thing too, again, selling houses, but cars. Is the car market about to explode when it comes to, because again, the used car, there was such a huge influx of got to get inventory. Now they have too much inventory. Does that got to change as part of?
I'm trying to figure out. My car lease is up in a few months, and I'm getting blown up by Nissan to take my car back, and I think I might try to leverage that to either buy or keep the car.
I would say, get some. Again, it's all about, don't be underwater in regards to the car itself. Just get the best deal, get the best value, and obviously get a car that you need.
But to your point of interest rates and housing markets and whatnot, one thing that I learned in the crash and the recession was that housing markets are very localized.
Yeah.
So I do think here in Florida, here in Tampa Bay, I do think that the housing market is going to correct.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to crash. Interest rates may go up, they may go down. I don't think they're going to drop back into the 2, 3, 4 range that we first saw them.
Not next year.
They may go up, they may go down.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember however many years ago, interest rates today are what, 7-8%.
7-8. Yeah.
I remember years and years and years ago, 7-8% was a great interest rate.
Right. I mean, you're talking 70s. I remember hearing stories about 10, 12, 15, 20, 20%. So that's craziness.
I think it's going to correct a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll be hugely impacted here in Florida because a lot of people still want to move into Florida. But I think it will be hugely impacted. I think the last one that I wanted to mention, kind of on the lines of AI, is and kind of along the lines that we were talking about influencers and YouTube and all that stuff, is the not only the social media, but the cell phone apps, the reliance on cell phones, the reliance on tablets and computers, and using AI to solve problems, and
big time.
finance apps and
Sure.
phone apps and all that stuff. I see that continuing as a major trend into 2024 is, I mean, the stuff that a cell phone can do now, 20, 30 years ago, you needed a room full of computers.
Right, you need a huge computer
to do
itself,
what a cell
mainframe.
phone can do right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing that may come up with some of the cell phone technology is, again, implants. Of course, Elon Musk is kind of like, how do we have it in our head? So I don't know if people are going to be, putting a chip. We had a lot of jokes during COVID around the chip and stuff, but that there's a lot of technology of like wearable technology, making the cell phone your watch, your glasses, some of those technology. But again, how is that going to help you from a finance perspective as an entrepreneur, as a personal finance? It's going to be interesting how some of those things can be incorporated.
The wearable stuff is kind of cool. I actually got into a little debate with a friend of mine over an Apple Watch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I understand the Apple Watch does so much.
It does.
The smartwatches do so much, but I don't know. I paid this money for the Rolex. I'm going to wear it.
No, and that's I'm a big fan of the smartwatches, so that's not if anyone knows the reference of like Dick Tracy, where you kind of like remember talking into the phone itself. I mean, I thought that was crazy growing up when I was 7, 8 years old. Again, Dick Tracy was reruns at that time for me, but being able to do that now and just the convenience of like seeing my calendar on my phone. I'm curious on like how they do the eyeglasses, those kind of things, because again, they're trying to like searches. It looks at your eyes on how you're, reacting and stuff. So again, it's just got to be careful, because here's the thing. Privacy is, like when you use these items, you're like, hey, I sign all the disclosures. I'm good. Share my info.
Our cell phones are listening to us right now.
So I mean, as the technology gets more personal and gets closer to us, the privacy questions start to pop up again. But again, from a finance standpoint, all of these things are going to help drive us forward. The question is going to be, how do we adapt?
How do we
handle it?
How do we implement it? How do we
that's
use
the
it?
key.
How do we incorporate it?
I think the more we resist, the more difficult it will be to implement in our lives personally.
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks who struggle with this, it's more of just like, no, I don't do crypto. I don't do technology. I'm like, again,
you're going to have to.
You're going to have to eventually take in on some of this to be able to continue to move forward, have the side hustles, retire with whatever it is that's necessary.
It was terrible. My kid lost a tooth a couple of weeks ago.
Congrats.
Yeah, and the tooth fairy didn't have any cash.
Oh, dang.
So the tooth fairy is going to Zelle you some money.
I mean, you got to go old school with that kind of one, but
go.
it's kind of like, no. They even the tooth fairy is upgrading in technology itself.
Exactly.
You got some extra money in your savings account. Don't worry.
So,
about it.
What trends do you all see coming in 2024 and beyond? What are some things that you all are seeing? What are some things that you all are noticing
or want to see
or want to see or notice? Yeah,
exactly.
So, one trend that I would like to see is more people on the Patreon page.
Support.
Patreon.com/crushingdebt. We appreciate all the support that we get there already. We could use more. But other than that, I think we are at the end of November, and we are at the end of this week's episode.
Big 400, episode 400 coming. We're gonna
next
have to
week. We got to figure that one out.
Plan it and say a nice little celebratory. We'll look back on the greatness. That's Shawn.
Yeah, right. So I'm gonna stop George from talking now by saying we hope that you have more money at the end of the month rather than month at the end of the money, and we will talk to you next week in episode 400.